Keanu Reeves accomplished to count the letter, Ariel his head, and afterwards added a distinct word, absolved off the stage. 200 bodies in the flat watched in complete silence. The cameras kept rolling. Jimmy Fallon sat arctic at his desk, his aperture hardly open, clumsy to anatomy words. The Roots, who had been arena cautiously in the background, chock-full midnight. The audience, accomplished to acknowledge with amusement and applause, did neither. They aloof stared because what had aloof happened on the Tonight appearance wasn't allotment of the script. It wasn't planned, and it absolutely wasn't article anyone would forget. But to accept why Keanu absolved off that stage, why Jimmy couldn't allege, and why that letter afflicted everything, we charged to go back to 3 weeks before this taping, back to a baby hospital allowance in Portland, Oregon. Area, a 12-year-old babe called Sarah Mitchell, was autographed the best important letter of her abbreviate life. Sarah had been a fan of the Tonight appearance back she was 8 years old. Not because she accepted all the jokes or knew who every celebrity bedfellow was, but because watching Jimmy Fallon fabricated her forget, alike for aloof 30 minutes, that she was sick. Date 4 leukemia doesn't accord you a bounding affidavit to smile, but Jimmy did every distinct night. Her parents had accomplished out to the appearance months earlier, acquisitive for a video message, maybe a active photo, article to lift Sarah's alcohol during her final annular of treatments. The producers accustomed hundreds of agnate requests every week. They couldn't acknowledge to all of them. But Sarah's letter was different. She didn't ask for annihilation for herself. Instead, she wrote about Keanu Reeves. "Dear Mr. Fallon," the letter began. "I apperceive you apparently get actor letters, and I apperceive you can't apprehend all of them. But if you could accord this to Keanu Reeves if he's any time on your show, I would be so grateful. He doesn't apperceive me, but his movies help me accept that a like-a-back activity is really absolutely hard. You can still accept to be kind. You can still accept to accumulate going. I appetite him to apperceive that he fabricated a difference. Alike if he never knows my name, the letter never fabricated it to Keanu, at atomic not through official channels. Sarah anesthetized abroad 2 weeks afterwards, she mailed it. Her mother, Rebecca, begin the abstract in Sarah's account and acquainted online, not assured annihilation to appear of it, aloof absent to account her daughter's aftermost wish. The column went viral, and 3 canicule later Keanu's aggregation accomplished out anon to Rebecca. What happened next, Cypher could accept predicted, not the producers, not Jimmy, and absolutely not the admirers who bought ticket celebration. They were aloof activity to watch a fun backward night show. Subscribe and leave a animate version because the best able allotment of this adventure is still ahead. Keanu didn't appetite publicity for what he was planning. He didn't appetite cameras documenting his appointment to Rebecca's home in Portland. He artlessly showed up unannounced and spent 4 hours with Sarah's family, alert to belief about her life, attractive at photos and acquirements about the babe who had accounting him that letter. Before he left, he asked Rebecca for one thing, a archetype of the Aboriginal letter, the one Sarah had drafted in her account, for commitment the typed version. "I'd like to apprehend it," he told her on television. "If that's accept with you," Rebecca didn't accept at first. "Apprehend it where? Why?" But Keanu explained, "Sarah capital me to apperceive her words, but I anticipate the apple should apperceive them too. I anticipate bodies charged to apprehend what a 12-year-old babe adverse afterlife accepted about activity bigger than best of us anytime will." 2 weeks later, Keanu was appointed as a bedfellow on The Tonight Show. The producers knew he capital to do article special, article al fresco the accustomed account format, but they didn't apperceive what. Jimmy was told alone that Keanu had a claimed adventure to allotment and that it ability get emotional. "No problem," Jimmy said. He'd handled affecting moments before. He was a professional. He could administer it. But Cypher was able for what absolutely happened. The appearance started normally. Jimmy did his monologue, landed his jokes. The admirers laughed on cue. A fresh alien Keanu, who absolved out to massive applause, acid his accepted all atramentus ensemble, apprehensive smile in place, bouncing to the crowd. They did the archetypal banter, talked about his latest projects, aggregate a funny adventure about filming. Aggregate was activity absolutely as planned. Then, about 8 account into the interview, Keanu accomplished into his anorak abridged and pulled out a bankrupt allotment of paper. The camera bent it, a close-up of acclimate anthology paper, edges hardly torn, autography in dejected ink arresting through the fold. Jimmy glanced at his cue cards, confused. This wasn't on the rundown. "Jimmy," Keanu said quietly, his articulation acid through the flat noise. "I charge to do article if that's okay. I charge to apprehend something." Jimmy nodded, ambiguous but trusting. "Of course, man, whatever you need." Keanu abundant the cardboard slowly, carefully, like it was fabricated of glass. The studio, analysis article different, went quiet. You could apprehend the cameras adjusting focus. You could apprehend addition in the admirers about face in their seat. Keanu looked bottomward at the letter, took a breath, and began. Dear Mr. Fallon, he apprehend his articulation abiding but soft. I apperceive you apparently get actor letters, and I apperceive you can't apprehend all of them. Jimmy's announcement changed. He sat up straighter. He didn't apperceive what this was yet, but he knew it wasn't a bit. This was real, Keanu continued. But if you could accord this to Keanu Reeves if he's any time on your show, I would be so grateful. He doesn't apperceive me, but his movies helped me accept that a like-a-back activity is really absolutely hard. You can still accept to be kind. The camera cut to Jimmy. His eyes were glistening. He apprenticed his aperture together, aggravating to authority composure. You can still accept to accumulate going, Keanu read, his articulation arise slightly. Now, I appetite him to apperceive that he fabricated a difference. Alike if he never knows my name. My name is Sarah. I'm 12 years old, and by the time anyone reads this, I'll apparently be gone. But I capital to say acknowledge you. Acknowledge you for assuming me that heroes aren't aloof in movies. They're real. And sometimes they're the bodies who admonish us to be affectionate. Aback, the apple feels absolutely dark. Abaft the scenes, article aberrant was happening. The administrator in the ascendancy allowance didn't cut to commercial. The producers didn't arresting to rap. Anybody aloof let the moment breathe. Keanu bankrupt the letter anxiously and looked up and on at the camera. Not at Jimmy, at the camera, at the millions of bodies watching at home. Sarah Mitchell wrote this letter 3 weeks afore she anesthetized abroad from leukemia, he said, his articulation almost aloft a whisper. She never got to mail it to me directly. Her mother began it afterwards. She died. And aback I apprehend it. I accomplished something. He paused. The blackout in the flat was deafening. We spent so abundant time aggravating to accomplish an impact, aggravating to be remembered, aggravating to matter. And here's this kid who had every acumen to be affronted at the world, to accord up, to stop caring, but instead she acclimated her aftermost bit of activity to address a letter thanking a drifter for reminding her to be kind. Kanu's articulation broke, absolutely broke. He stopped, looked down, composed himself. Aback he looked back up. Tears were active bottomward his face. He didn't clean them away. I didn't apperceive Sarah, he continued. I never got to accommodated her, but she knew me, or at atomic she knew the adaptation of me that I try to be, and I anticipate that's the point. We don't consistently apperceive who we're affecting. We don't consistently see the impulse we have, but it's there. It's consistently there. Jimmy Fallon, who had interviewed hundreds of celebrities, who prided himself on befitting shows ablaze and fun, who consistently knew what to say, sat at his board with tears alive bottomward his face, clumsy to speak. He tried. His aperture opened. Annihilation came out. He aloof befuddled his arch slowly, overwhelmed. Keanu looked at him, afresh aback at the camera, afresh bottomward at the letter in his hands, and afresh he did article no bedfellow had any time done in the history of The Tonight Show. He stood up, still captivation the letter, and afterwards a word, absolved off the stage, not to the wings area guests commonly exit. He absolved bottomward the stairs into the admirers adjoined the aback of the flat and abolished through the rear doors. The cameras didn't chase him, they backward on Jimmy who sat there stunned, his easily accoutrement his face. The roots didn't play, the admirers didn't move. For 17 seconds, which acquainted like 17 minutes, there was complete blackout on the appearance advised to never stop moving, never stop talking, never stop entertaining. Finally, Jimmy wiped his eyes, looked anon into the camera, and said the alone affair he could manage. We're activity to booty a break, we'll be appropriate back. But what happened during that bartering breach is the allotment of the adventure that never aired, the allotment that afflicted Jimmy Fallon forever. Allotment and subscribe. Accomplish abiding this adventure is never forgotten. The producers rushed to Jimmy's board during the break, allurement if he was okay, if he capital to end the appearance early, if he bear a moment. But Jimmy wasn't listening. He was attractive at the aback doors of the flat area. Keanu had disappeared. Area did he go? Jimmy asked. Cypher knew. Keanu's aggregation was aloof as abashed as anybody else. A fresh Jimmy did article he'd never done before. He stood up, took off his tie, alone it on his desk, and absolved off his own set. Abrogation his producers abashed abaft him. He went through the aforementioned doors Keanu had acclimated into the back alley of 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Area agents' offices and bathrobe apartment banned the corridors. He began Keanu sitting on the attic alfresco his bathrobe room, aback adjoined the wall, knees pulled up, still captivation Sarah's letter. He wasn't errant anymore, he was aloof sitting there staring at nothing. Jimmy sat bottomward abutting to him, didn't say annihilation at first. Aloof sat there on the attic of a alley in the architecture area. He'd hosted one of the better shows in television for over a decade, in his suit, pants, and dress shirt, tie abandoned, sitting abutting to one of the best acclaimed actors in the world. I couldn't breach up there, Keanu said finally. I couldn't accomplish any more. That letter, that kid, she's gone, Jimmy, and I'm actuality account her words on TV like it's content, like it's a moment. It acquainted wrong, it acquainted like I was application her. Jimmy befuddled his head. You weren't application her, man. You were anniversary her. That's different. Is it? Keanu looked at him. She capital me to apperceive her words. She didn't appetite the apple to apperceive them. I fabricated that best for her mother. I don't apperceive if that was right. Jimmy anticipation about that. He anticipation about all the affecting segments he'd done over the years. The abruptness reunions. The viral feel-good moments. The tears and amusement that fabricated abundant television. He'd consistently believed those moments mattered, but sitting there on that alley floor, he wasn't abiding anymore. You apperceive what I think? Jimmy said. I anticipate Sarah knew absolutely what she was doing. She wrote that letter to you. Yeah. But she wrote it alive, she'd be gone. She wrote it, acquisitive edition would apprehend it. Maybe not on TV, maybe not in advance of millions of people, but she wrote it acquisitive her words would matter. And they do, Keanu. They absolutely do. Keanu was quiet for a continued moment. Afresh, he handed the letter to Jimmy. You should accumulate this, he said. Jimmy looked bottomward at the beat anthology cardboard at Sarah's handwriting. Accurate and accurate admitting aggregate she'd been activity through. I can't booty this. He said this belongs to her family. I already talked to Rebecca. Keanu said she wants you to accept it. She said Sarah would accept admired that. She said Sarah watched your appearance every night. You were allotment of her routine, allotment of what fabricated her feel normal. Rebecca thinks Sarah would appetite you to bethink her, to bethink why you do what you do. Jimmy stared at the letter, account the words again. You can still accept to be kind. You can still accept to accumulate going. He bankrupted anxiously and put it in his shirt abridged appropriate over his heart. They sat there for addition few minutes, not talking, aloof absolute in the aforementioned space. Eventually, Ambassador peeked about the corner, afraid to interrupt, but defective to apperceive what was happening. Jimmy, she said softly, we charge to apperceive if you're advancing back. We can end the appearance actuality if you charge to. Jimmy looked at Keanu. Keanu nodded. They both stood up, brushed off their pants, and absolved aback join the flat together. Aback they alternate to the stage. The admirers had been sitting in blackout for about 12 minutes. Some bodies had left, borderline if the appearance was continuing, but best stayed. They backward because they sensed they were allotment of article real. Jimmy took his bench at the desk. Keanu sat aback bottomward in the bedfellow chair. The cameras came aback on. Jimmy looked anon into the lens and said, I'm apologetic for the break. That was best than we planned, but some things can't be planned. Some things aloof charge to happen. He pulled Sarah's letter from his abridged and captivated it up for the camera to see. This letter was accounting by a 12-year-old babe called Sarah Mitchell. She anesthetized abroad 3 weeks ago. She admired this show. She admired Keanu. And she capital the apple to apperceive that affection matters. That allotment to accumulate activity matters. That a like-a-back aggregate feels impossible. We can still accept how we amusement anniversary other. Jimmy's articulation was abiding now. Sarah, if you're watching from wherever you are, we heard you and we won't forget. Keanu accomplished over and placed his duke on Jimmy's shoulder. No words, aloof presence. The admirers rose to their feet, not in applause, but in reverence. The roots didn't comedy them out. The cameras aloof captivated on two men sitting calm in silence. Captivation amplitude for a babe who accomplished the apple what it agency to accept kindness. That night, Jimmy kept Sarah's letter in his board drawer. He still has it. Every appearance before he walks on stage, he touches that drawer, reminds himself why he's there. Not for ratings, not for viral moments, but for the Sarah of the apple watching from hospital rooms, acquisitive for 30 account of a blaze in the darkness. Keanu never battened about that night again. He didn't charge to. Sarah's words had done the speaking. And sometimes the best able affair you can do is footfall aback and let addition else's accuracy ample the room. This is why we acquaint stories. This is why moments like these matter. Subscribe and allotment this, because Sarah's bulletin deserves to alive on. Accept kindness. Accept to accumulate activity, always.